So this problem has to do with a bicycle ramp, and they have a picture in the book at the very beginning. It references a situation with a bicycle ramp, and they have a picture if you want to look at that, but we're just going to draw a triangle here. So it says a bicycle ramp is constructed for high-level competition with an angle of theta formed by the ramp and the ground. So here's the ground, here's the ramp, and then here's theta. And we'll just draw an end to that ramp there. Okay. Another ramp is to be constructed half as steep. Okay, something like that. So we'll call this theta over 2 because it's half as steep. That's supposed to be a triangle. Okay. It's okay that it's not a great picture. We'll make these some right angles here. Okay. If the tangent of theta, so back to the first angle, the steeper ramp, the tangent is 5 over 3. So that's opposite over adjacent, 5 over 3. That's for the higher level competition. What's the measurement of this angle right here? So that's the question. We want to find that measurement, that angle measurement. Okay? So we're going to use a half angle formula like you might have suspected. But before we can do that, we need to figure out some stuff on this bigger triangle, okay? So we want to be able to find our trig functions. So we'll use the Pythagorean theorem and say 3 squared plus 5 squared is equal to c squared, or 9 plus 25, or c is going to equal the square root of 34. So you could do some stuff with that. So now I at least know the trig functions for theta. So I'm going to pull out a half angle formula. Now we're going to use tangent. I'm just doing that because that's what they did in the book. You probably could use sine or cosine. Maybe that would be easier. I don't know. I'm just going to use the tangent one. I'm not going to do it twice, so I should do that. Okay, these angles are positive. They'd all be in the first quadrant, so we don't need the plus or minus. And then the tangent, I'm going to use this formula, 1 minus cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. Okay, now, do I know the cosine of theta? Yeah, because I've got the adjacent and I've got the hypotenuse. So the cosine of theta is equal to 3 over the square root of 34. Now, I would rationalize that. So I'm going to rationalize it. And I'm going to get, let me scroll this up so I have a little more room. Okay, 3 times the square root of 34 over 34. Now, I'm sure there's other ways you could do this, but this is the way I'm choosing to do it. So I get 1 minus 3 times the square root of 34 over 34. That's a 34. Over 1 plus 3 times the square root of 34 over 34. And then I'm going to do some, algebra in here. I'm going to get 34 minus 3 times the square root of 34 over 34. A lot of 34s. Over 34 plus, 34 plus 3 times the square root of 34 over 34. So think about, your common denominators and all that fraction work. The 34s are going to cancel. And so now I'm going to have this. The square root of 34 minus 3 times the square root of 34 all over 34 plus 3 times the square root of 34. Okay, I am going to put this in a calculator. Now, what we're saying is the tangent of theta, it was a theta, theta over 2 equals this, okay? Now, I'm going to show you what the book did, and then I'm going to show you the way I would do it. Okay, it's very similar, so don't worry too much. I'm pretty flexible on those types of things. I'm going to put this in a calculator, all of this, because what I want to do is I want to do an inverse tangent. Okay, so my theta over 2, which is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for theta. I want to do inverse tangent of this. Okay, you could put that all in a calculator. but I didn't. I did this part first. So I'm going to do this part, get it in my calculator, and then I'll do the inverse tangent. I don't have a really expensive, high sophisticated calculator, but I don't think that's going to matter a whole lot with the way you have to input this. So it becomes kind of a calculator challenge. So I'm going to put this in my calculator. Now what I have to do though is I have to, okay, let me start it. So clear, okay. So I'm putting in the square root, okay, and it opens a parenthesis. That's a parenthesis right there, okay? No, it's not. It's a parenthesis right here, okay? So eventually I'm going to close that off, but I've got to be careful. So I'm going to put another parenthesis because I've got to keep the numerator together, okay? So I'm going to put another parenthesis. I'm going to put 34 minus 3. Then I'm going to put another square root. And it opens another parenthesis, right? So now I've got a parenthesis in here. And I'm going to put the 34. Now I've got to close that off here. Then I've got to close off the green one. And then I've got to, don't close off the orange one yet. Okay, so that's that part. Now I'm going to hit the division. Now I'm going to do this. All right, so divided by. And then I've got to open another parenthesis right there because I've got to have all that denominator together. So 34 plus 3 square root. Now watch me mess up because I'm trying to talk and do this at the same time. It opens another parenthesis there. It opens another parenthesis there. And so I need to close, I got to put the 34 in. Close that off, close off the denominator, and then that's the green part. Okay, so that's that one. And then one more to close off the orange part. Okay, now the calculators are somewhat forgiving. You know, like if you missed that last one, it'd probably be okay. But you have to be careful because otherwise it's not going to do the calculation right. It's going to follow the order of operations. So it might take a little practice. So I'm going to put enter. Okay, and I get something like 0.56619 and some more numbers. Now, the textbook, they rounded off. They said, okay, we're going to round it to 2 decimal places, and they went, it's about 0.57, okay? I didn't do that. I kept my number in there because I don't want to round off, so I'm going to do the inverse tangent. So my answer, so let's see, we're going to write this. So my answer is going to be, I'm going to go inverse tangent. So let me go inverse tangent. And then I'm going to do my second, my answer, you know, do that part. Second answer equals, oh, make sure you're in degrees, by the way. The degree mode. Okay, and so I get, my answer is about 29.5 degrees, okay? But if you used the book, you know, if you're like following along in the textbook, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that, they're going to go inverse tangent 0.57, and they're going to get something else. I'll have to see what it is. Inverse tangent 0.57, 29.7. So you can see it's off a little bit. It's a rounding thing. I didn't round off, the book did. Which one's right? I'm going to be flexible on that. So I chose to do it one way, and you know, somebody else chose it to do it another way. We're fairly close. I mean, I like to think my answer is a little more accurate. But you know, you're going to run into situations where sometimes you have to round off. And so there's going to be maybe some, you know, a little leeway. You know, if you had something like 30.5, I would say, well, that's too much leeway. But, you know, in this case, I would say both answers are correct. I just, you know, did it one way and somebody else did it a different way. Okay, so that's kind of a long explanation. A little bit of calculator work there, so practice with that. But there you go.